In the next 20 minutes, we're going to have a deep dive into the mind and the brain and the work of, as I say, one of the most prolific designers in the industry today, and I think it's so important. You work for a host of brands. I can name only just a few. Would we be here all day? Cassina, Louis Vuitton, Cartel, Hayworth, etc., etc. But Patricia has put together a portfolio of images and ideas which are both illustrative in what you do, but more importantly, I think, what you think and the way you are thinking, how you influence big and small companies. And we are going to start with this small animation. So please elaborate on this. What does this say about you, your working methods?
We just go with this one and the next two ones, which are over this one. Just this conversation begins from the idea of you were curious, no? You were saying to me, could I tell you, having a kind of being so connected with the system in very different ways, in very different layers, and with this kind of rhizome of relations, and what I feel and what can move my relation with them. And as Pink Panther, you know, that she can always get on material, on color, you know, and that was an argument.
She blends with the color in the background.
Which is, well, was something that was interesting argument. Or Miranda July, she's saying, speaking this kind of new era, which is more connected with a very dense idea of individualism, not anymore all our currents of, I'm an architect and designer, the currents of rationalism and postmodernism, they went in the idea of unifying in some ways some estilems and ideas and concepts, and today is not more possible. There's no referential more word. You can stop on this one. This idea of, it's real for us that today we changed the structure of our planet. And we did, for example, with some friends, artists and creative, we had the luck to go to Greenland, and it was a travel very strange because we were a few friends, 15 days, no connection, and we didn't discuss 1 second about anything. We were really in between drama thinking and the open mind to the beauty of
And is this something you find you need to do to get away to?
We had the possibility from a friend, an architect friend that had the possibility to do that travel. We were helping, you know, to take the boat to Greenland, and they were using there for NAS and other things. And was really a very important moment to get on relation with the physical elements. Always is, I think, as Olafur Eliasson is doing a lot of research and taking part of Greenland, of this ice, to our civilization and make us look at it. And, you know, the materia, which was part of what I wanted to speak with you, you know, in this changing planet, is going to be, it could be a catalyzer to understand many arguments. And we are speaking about a virtual, don't go on, we are speaking a lot about a virtual world, and it's obvious, which is, we know many, that possibly, mostly of the arguments is how we are going to adapt to many ways of living and using things in a more virtual way, because these two things are overlapping, the physical and the virtual. But in any case, for example, these images, I like it, the way we are connected with all the, in any case, materia is important. In all my projects, in the way we are doing, and we are presenting something of architecture or something of design, at the end, comunque, we have to understand how we want to relate to those materials and how we want to relate to the way we proceeded, and because it's a response, it's an answer to the planet.
We've talked a lot these 2 days, and Tim Brown started the conversation that this industry has changed so radically from an industry that was traditionally about taking something from the ground, using some alchemy, turning it into a thing that we then sell on. And that system, that linear system, is no longer relevant.
Obviously. For example, this was a little intervent we were doing in an exhibition that was in Milano. The idea that I was working with a 3D machine, 3D printing machine, and we were putting all this idea of these items, these items you need for eating. If we were not eating anymore, we were changing the way of eating. If you put them inside the drawings, inside the information you give to the machine to produce them, if you put them in a way they are not in order and they are not put in a kind of layered way, the machine needs to create a kind of jungle to create them, to just create a structure. And at the end was coming a kind of jungle where all those products, you know, that were the needs that we had from always, they got inside a kind of new nature. If you go on, for example, this is part of my traditional work. That's what I work with quadrat fabric, or that's a work, what is looking, the one in the other side is ceramic work. But my work with ceramic, those surfaces, they teach me a lot. For example, in both situations, we were thinking about products and thinking, but in ceramic, in the last years, this material, which is done in between, is with padworks and water, and normally use a lot of water for producing. One of the emergencies, I think the needs, was to use less water, and then they introduced a new technology, which is, the name is Continua, and this is done with Continua, that creates new ways of relating my work to them and the work to
was this
and it's absorbing
questions from you? Were you asking questions?
Well, they were asking me to use this new technology a few years ago. It was in Italy, they were the first producer of this kind of technology. Now a few companies they are using, and the idea was that all the left of the production, they get inside the cycle, and then they use much less water. Then the machine that produces like more a kind of big robot, but at the end the quality can be very sensible, and you can find new aesthetics, because the things are changing completely. Then it's called ceramic, but it's the contrary of what could be ceramic on our mind.
So it's a new, it's not actually ceramic, but it's a new form.
Yes,
it's taking the properties, but taking fewer resources.
The concept that you have ceramic is completely another thing. Yes. Then what I think is a paradigm which is interesting. That is part of it. If you go on, for example, working with furniture and things, many times we need to have the skin and the fabrics, but the fabrics now, we are just doing now in this moment, and there is a company that they were working with CNC machines very well in an incredible way, and they come to me to ask, as a designer, to do research for them, to make those machines work in a more intelligent way. Then we are using recycled fibers. We are trying to really rethink the possibilities of what we have in our hands. Then I think material matters in some way. If we go on, for example, that's another work which is related to handmade. It's quite simple. It's done in India with GAN, a company from Spain. We are doing now.
What material is it?
It's done in wool, but it's a kind of new felter that we introduce inside the felter, recycled felter too.
Right.
Then at the end, you know, this kind of terrazzo, which is looking, is just comunque, to give value, to make a kind of material that should be, you know, the left of that kind of felter, make them interesting and give them a value. We are going to introduce it now as quite sophisticated work, but at the end is comunque just working with a kind of sample trash.
Yes.
As
Arthur was saying, yes, making trash sexy.
Well, I don't know if sexy, but upcycling. You know, this kind of argument that many people are speaking today, which is recycling is a word that has to move to upcycling, which is giving a kind of passage which is a bit more more complex than just recycling. No?
But do you find a lot of these big companies that you've worked with for many years, are they now calling on your skills, not only as a designer, but as somebody who's asking questions and pushing them, and are they expecting you?
I think what I'm proud or I'm happy that is happening, a person like me, which is comunque from my generation, that is being inserted in a system that is completely changing in this period, and I think it's going to change in the next year in a strong, strong way. They don't approach me in the studio, people that they know me from a few years, or people that they know me, or they approach me for first time. They don't come only, you know, because she has a sensibility we can do. No, I think they know we can change some techniques they have, or, for example, in hospitality, we had a discussion already 2 days ago, because they just want to change completely certain things, and I said, okay, I'm gonna be be open to speak with you. What we were seeing, for example, now, the one before, there were these kind of very simple carpets, was nothing. That was an outdoor product. That outdoor product was done in a kind of polyester, because you cannot do with natural materials, but now we are upcycling it, and we are doing with the recycled polyester and polyamide. We are upcycling even the productions we are doing already. That is part of my discussion with all my clients. I don't know which is always the path we can get, but I am a person which is very open to dialogue, to share, but a kind of disrupted conversation always, a kind of uncomfort zone, but real not uncomfort zone for me for thinking, a comfort zone for them for working. I think in many of my things, for example, this wood is done with a company that they had control numeric new machines, in that case too, and they asked me to work on surfaces, and they would say, you could work with us, and for 1 year we stopped the work, because I said to them, I'm not going to work on that. If I work with you, I'm going to change the way, you know, when you're working in parquet, in wood, the only traditional thing they're still doing for years and years is this male and female element that they put. And this is the only thing they don't want to change, because it's basilar. And I said to them, we are going to change that. Then we changed the shape of the module, and this obliged the machine to work in control numeric. And then we are changing the way they put together these modules. Then it's a research, and we win a prize. I'm very happy about this thing. It was something that was changing the way. Now they are adding part of the company, because for those machines we needed a new even space, physical space. Right. And I like this idea of ideas, physical space, virtual space, research. So
and, yes, you are literally pushing them into a discomfort zone, making them.
In that case, it was a little bit, and I was very happy about that. For example, this is crystal glass is a material that I always said complicated for me, because it's very, you know, the nature of the idea of being always transparent. In tools for living, I always had problems. I like it a lot when we have this transparency in little tools where we can eat or drink or something, but sometimes in domesticity is there's something that is not attractive for me. Then my conversation with an Italian company was about this.
Glass Italia.
They said, I'm not so comfortable with, and they said, okay, then I want to work with you because of that. Then a few years, he's changing my approach, because he comes to me, now we are working this year with a new technique, with a layering different filters. We get in 2 centimeters, really interesting work of colors and layers. But that was the first work we did strong, and then it was the shimmer film connected with the glass. That was one of the conversations I want to say. Sometimes this uncomfort zone of discussion is giving a lot. For example, this is my work in America with as kind of art direction with Hayworth, and they are doing furniture for offices, and obviously they did all the money with the 9-to-5 boxes and very ergonomical chairs. Yes. But I'm working with them in all the things which are nothing to do with this. They are 7 years. We are working on tables, a kind of places for sitting where you can put people together, screens that you can move in a very light way. And all the way we introduce the pieces to the public, we are working with teachers and researchers of a kind of engineers and artists that are working a lot with algorithm, and we're doing, you know, reactive presentations. For example, this was the idea of these community tables, and we were doing this kind of river of color that they were reacting to your hands in the way you were touching the table. Then my idea is always making them understand that part of these new virtual possibilities and that will be added to the physical one, they have to dialogue, they have to become sensible, they have to become humanistic in some way. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of space. This, for example, is a company of marble doing my work of architecture. They need a lot of research on that. And I asked them always to work with all the leftovers. Yeah. And in this case, many times, the big blocks of this natural material, which is complex material. For me as an architect at the beginning was I only liked, you know, the white or very simplified marble. But I liked the beginning of those blocks that nobody wanted to use because it's a B-side of the marble. And they have those kind of grids of protection. And I was keeping the material like it was, just layering and then adding some silicones and materials. And then we are trying to do tables and things which are speaking to marble in another way. Then
So you're using the rejected, the ugly side.
Well, I always say the B-sides of the company.
Yes.
They have fantastic clients that they get, you know, when they select marble, they always select the best part because it's already the quality of the material. I don't believe we have to approach anymore any kind of our raw materials in the way we approached it before. In the way I'm speaking with Cassina for leather, and we are doing a lot of, I wanted to, we can go one back.
You can go back.
No, yes. One back, but it's as much as possible. Is in the way I was saying, the materials, in the marble, if you approach all the leftovers, you begin to understand the qualities, the colors, the energy. It's a material that is done with in the time. All the pollution that gets inside that kind of stone give the value to the marble and the color. Then I began to even learn myself to understand something about the material. Here we are moving to something which is very different. My ideas, I love these photos and these videos I do when people are working. I was in Moroso, and those ladies which are working still with their hands and working, they have all the machines for certain things, but the human beings are working in a very natural way. And I love to do those drawings over them, you know, this, I imagine this. And this is part of my laboratory. If you go one, that is just to introduce a work I'm doing now with Moroso and with the gentleman that was speaking, with Arthur, that was speaking with you before. And it's a kind of a statement that we are doing for Salone del Mobile, which is about all these new, as he was saying, sexy, or we say upcycled new products, which are looking to all the elements or the components thought in a new way with recycled, in this case with recycled plastic. He's sending me all the material, and I'm working with Moroso and composing this kind of, I don't know, it's a new armchair. We are enjoying, because I think part of the process has to be a joy. As for example, I love it. This was an exhibition. It's not important to speak about it. A few years ago, and in Asia, and there was what was the last place you felt fantastic? You know, it's a question that I think I like. I was in that photo. I was in the Botanic Gardens in Palermo, and it was this summer. And it was a moment I was the modular of my relation with nature. And it was a day we were with some friends, architects, participating to another talk and something, and was very intense the day, because we were thinking how much this new planet, Capito, yes. And I come from a generation that did a lot of wrong things, and every morning in my work, when I come here, I take the plane, I go to visit a company or anything, I have the concept of failure very strong in my mind. But the failure, I think, is I added as a value to my other values, yes, of my process. Then I understood it's a value to understand the concept of this failure, to introduce as a utopia. In my work with Cassina, which I'm doing a kind of art direction for 3 years, we were introducing the historical elements of the company in a new way. For example, that was an exhibition we did for celebrating the 90 years of the company. That for me was a 9.0, yes, Capito, metaphor of digital implementation. And if you go, that was for me, you know, the little image of a phone, the big image of a photographer, of a video, they are all elements, they are mixed in my mind at the same way. And all the walls of that place, they were reacting when you were moving through the space. Here, I want to just skip because we're just running out of time. Yeah. And I want to talk about BMW because, yes, that to me is, let's go. We have a minute. Because why is Well,
automotive company as big as BMW.
Well,
Patricia Urquiola.
in all my companies.
You're designing cars? No.
No, I'm not even especially interested. It's because I think Adrian, this, I think, very enlightened man, which is running this company for the side of design, he said, exactly, I need someone like you, that you're going to give me all the questions which are not the ungentle questions.
Yes.
And we are speaking about mobility. They were asking me to, for the first time, to be as a designer inside a place that nobody from outside works with them, yes, in the way they display things inside BMW. Yes.
So and again, they're bringing you in for a different, yes, kind of
but
perspective.
They wanted me at the end to do something, at the end in some way traditional, with a kind of idea of domesticity. They said, no domesticity, we are where I work with this company, which is doing with robot, this kind of continuous 3D printing big spaces. We are going to make all the people which are, you are inside the company, then everybody is going to see how react this idea of new robotic, new way of producing a floor, for example, and we are going to create the surface, the place where you're going to show the cars.
Well, I think it's fascinating.
And then it was very educative, I think, for them to look at a new kind of process, yes, that is there where we are going to find possibly answers of our way to relate to our society.
Answers to questions we don't know, yes, yet. I think it's...
And not only doing, you know, even it was a kind of parquet. They wanted a kind of yes, very elegant things that we are going to change all the...
But thank you so much for this deep dive into the brain of the most prolific designer working on the planet today, and inventive and asking questions. And it's so encouraging that we see these big companies coming back to ask for more and to ask for these questions and to be pushed into their comfort zones.
And adding the concept of failure, Eiko.
And yes, the concept of failure. Thank you very much. Please, warm thank you to Patricia Urquiola.